this is not a great way of structuring yield. We want to expand where yield can come from by importing yield from the productive economy. We're not getting yield from DeFi games. So what is the risk for our depositors? Hi, my name is Benjamin Peillard, and I'm the CEO of CAP. CAP is a credit platform for principal protection. Today, we're going to talk about what it is and where the yield comes from. Usually in DeFi and in crypto markets, yield comes from one place, which is Bitcoin markets. So that can mean a couple of things. For some, that means trading strategies. Think basis trading. That's actually pretty much it, basis trading. You also have BTC-backed lending. Now we're talking about Sky, we're talking about Compound, Aave, of course, FalconX, etc. And then finally, we have token emissions. Now, most liquid funds use token emissions to have the great yields that a lot of these liquid funds are able to give to their LPs. They'll deposit some sort of stablecoins into a DeFi protocol and get tokens, which they can then sell for added yield. Even though these are many different tokens, they are all tied to Bitcoin markets. If Bitcoin is up in price, these tokens are worth a lot, and so the yield is very good. If Bitcoin is down in price, these tokens are not doing so well, and the yield is pretty bad. But this is not a great way of structuring yield because, for example, now Bitcoin prices are down, and the trading strategies are not making yield. BTC-backed lending is giving lower yield than the T-bill rates, right? And token emissions, well, there are no token emissions during a bear market. And so what we want to do at CAP is we want to expand where yield can come from by importing yield from the real economy, from the productive economy. So that means a few things. We're getting yield, instead of from trading, we're getting that from manufacturing. Think every time a manufacturing plant makes a car, there's yield that you can get from that by loaning to that sort of business. Another example could be films. Films regularly borrow money in order to finance their productions. And so you can also make yield from that. There's also trade finance. The globe's commerce has yield to provide to capital deployers, but to date, none of these opportunities have been available to people in crypto because our capital markets have not connected to them. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to connect to these sorts of yield profiles. The next question is, who bears the risk? So this yield is great, it's coming from the real economy, but how do I lose my money? So what is the risk for our depositors? Well, first of all, let's step back and look at the yield sources again. You have manufacturing, you have, say, trade finance. You could still have some trading, like lending to high-frequency trading firms. And let's put inventory as well. So this is what the real economy looks like. There are different sort of opportunities that arise, companies that want to borrow capital in order to produce value for the economy. The problem that we have is that we have all this money that our users have deposited. So this comes from retail depositors. And it's our job to allocate it to all these different opportunities and also protect them from the risk. So to answer the question, who bears the risk? Well, we've created a new type of user, and we call them the underwriter. And the underwriter sits right in the middle. So the underwriters will sit here, and these can be all sorts of different players, like ETH restakers. It can be BTC miners. It can even be credit funds. So it can be different types of users that have unproductive assets, right? Assets that are not as productive as the dollar. And they come to CAP and they decide that they're going to be the ones to allocate our funds. So an ETH restaker could decide to allocate our funds to a manufacturing plant. a BTC miner could say, well, I will allocate our funds to inventory financing. And the way they do that is that they will place their own unproductive assets as guarantee, as sort of insurance in case they make a bad decision. And so the users, the retail money, that all ends up here in the productive economy and is generating yield for our users. Now, if any of these underwriters make a mistake, let's say the BTC miners allocating to an inventory financing firm, let's say they make a mistake, well, we'll take their BTC and we'll use that to pay back any losses that the retail depositors incur. Now, why would they do this? Because their assets are unproductive. So this BTC miner, there's no other way for them to get scalable yield because Bitcoin is not a currency. There's not large-scale credit markets on Bitcoin compared to the dollar. And so they come to CAP in order to get some yield in exchange for taking the risk and for making this decision for our protocol. All right, so the next one is, what happens if there is an issue with the collateral? I just said that the underwriters place collateral in order to protect retail depositors from their decisions. But that collateral could have problems. And it happens all the time. For example, a few weeks ago, there was large-scale bad debt at certain lending markets in crypto because of the rsETH hack with Layer 0. And it resulted in hundreds of millions of dollars of losses for DeFi depositors. So what happens if that happens at CAP? Well, first, we have to understand how CAP is structured. So users, retail depositors, we already know that they bring in dollars. And they bring in dollars because they want to earn yield. And the borrowers, they take those dollars. And the underwriters, they're the ones that are vouching for the borrowers. So what happens when there is a compromised collateral, it means that the BTC, the gold, the Japanese yen, whatever unproductive asset that the underwriters are using to vouch for the borrower, let's say that goes to zero. So now there is no guarantee from the underwriters that the borrowers will repay. Well, that is completely a separate case from the borrower repaying or not. Because the borrower at CAP, they have a legal agreement to repay the loan. And so whatever happens at the underwriter side, it is unrelated to the borrowers. And so let's say we had taken rsETH as collateral and it went to zero. Well, the manufacturing plant can still repay. The trade financing firm can still repay. And so we would still not be at a bad debt scenario. And lastly, why should you use CAP? Why should allocators trust our protocol? I'll boil it down to the three most important reasons. The first one is that it's automated. You don't have to trust us as a team. And that's a big mitigant for risks. The second piece is that we have principal protection. So every single loan that we give to these real world companies is covered by on-chain insurance. You never have to trust these borrowers to repay because there's collateral that can be used to liquidate them if they don't repay. And the last reason that you should trust CAP is that the yield is real and it's scalable. You can put billions of dollars into CAP and it will still scale because our yield source is the real economy. We get yield from manufacturing plants, we get yield from financial players, we get yield from the global trade. We're not getting yield from DeFi games. We're not getting yield from token emissions or from some trading strategies. This is the real economy funding our product. And so even now it's a terrible market condition, Bitcoin's at a low, but our yield is still very nice. And it's because the real economy always keeps on moving. If you want to learn more about CAP, you can simply go to cap.app. And if you want to follow us on social media, you can go to X @CapApp. Thank you, guys.